Nous allons créer un fonds de développement local.
We're setting up a local development fund, which will channel some of the money from the industry and allow people in mining areas to benefit from projects which can improve.
A 5.7 kilogram gold bar was just poured in Burkina Faso. And for once, it's not heading to Switzerland, Dubai, or London. It's staying right where it came from. But why is this single bar causing murmurs across global mining circles? What's happening beneath the surface in Burkina Faso? Let's find out. On June 30th, 2025, a quiet revolution was cast in molten metal. Deep in the red soil of southern Burkina Faso, a 5.7 kilogram gold bar emerged from the smelter at the newly activated Kiaka gold mine, a site once overlooked, now reimagined as the beating heart of the nation's mining rebirth. The bar, weighing just over 183 ounces, wasn't sent off for export. It wasn't flown out of the country. It was held up, admired, and, perhaps most importantly, claimed. The company behind the operation, West African Resources WAF, a listed Australian firm, announced the first successful gold pour at Kiaka. But this wasn't just another press release lost in the blur of commodity markets. This was Burkina Faso's first major new industrial gold output under its new mining rules. And it happened ahead of schedule, under budget, and on a timeline few believed possible. What made it so significant wasn't the bar itself, it was what it symbolized. Kiaka isn't just mined. It's the opening act of what WAF hopes will be a gold juggernaut, an operation producing more than 500,000 ounces annually by 2030. But for Burkina Faso, the deeper story isn't about how much gold comes out of the ground. It's about where it goes next, and who gets to decide? WAF acquired the Kiaka project in late 2021, purchasing a 90% stake from Canadian company B2 Gold and its partners. At the time, it was seen as just another foreign transaction in a long line of Western firm takeovers in Africa's mining corridors. But something shifted between then and now, and it didn't just come from the corporate side. The remaining 10% stake in Kiaka belongs to the government of Burkina Faso, but that number is no longer fixed. In a sweeping move, the government has since restructured its mining laws, giving itself the right to expand its equity in all new projects to 15%, with the option to go up to 30%. So even as foreign investors like WAF celebrate operational milestones, the rules of ownership have changed beneath their feet. And yet, WAF didn't resist this shift. It embraced the challenge. The company managed to navigate the revised regulations, establish strong partnerships with financiers like Sprott and Chorus Bank, and still deliver results in record time. According to WAF's executive chairman Richard Hyde, the first pour marks a major milestone, not just in output, but in what he called long-term responsible mining. But let's not mistake diplomacy for control. WAF may be extracting gold, but Burkina Faso is now setting the terms. The Kiaka pour didn't happen in a vacuum. It occurred under a government that's been consolidating its grip on the gold sector, rewriting laws, launching national institutions, and preparing to refine gold domestically instead of exporting it raw. The real story here isn't corporate, it's national. This gold bar is the first of many that won't leave unnoticed, unprocessed, or untaxed. It represents a quiet pivot from a past defined by foreign extraction and capital flight, toward a future built on retention, value, and local power. And just as importantly, it sends a message. Burkina Faso is still open for business, but on its terms. There's another layer to this event, one most headlines won't mention. Kiaka's activation happened at a time when the country is rebranding its entire gold economy, with plans to clamp down on illegal exports, build a national refinery, and even redirect control of strategic assets to a state-owned entity. This gold bar is more than a product. It's proof that the new system is real, and it's already pouring. So as the metal cools and the global markets watch, one thing is certain, this isn't the same Burkina Faso. Let's pause for a second to say, big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. To understand the true weight of that first gold bar, you need to know where it came from and why it matters beyond its glimmer. The Kiaka Gold Project is not just another mine in Burkina Faso's sprawling mineral map. It's a long-buried promise finally rising to the surface, backed by both geological fortune and strategic timing. Located roughly 140 kilometers southeast of Ouagadougou in the Center-Sud region, the Kiaka site sat dormant for years. Previous owners, including B2 Gold Corp, saw its potential but hesitated amid global uncertainty and the evolving security dynamics in the Sahel. For many, Kiaka was a sleeping giant, too rich to ignore, yet too complex to awaken. That changed in November 2021, when West African Resources, WAF, took a decisive step. The Australian firm purchased a 90% stake in the project, effectively betting on Burkina Faso's future at a time when others were pulling back. It wasn't just about acquiring a gold deposit. It was about committing to building from scratch in one of the world's most geopolitically fragile regions. WAF wasn't looking for an easy win. What attracted the company to Kiaka was its enormous geological footprint. The deposit hosts one of the largest undeveloped gold resources in West Africa, with estimated reserves of over 7 million ounces. The scale alone makes Kiaka a once-in-a-generation opportunity, a project capable of sustaining high output for over a decade if managed properly. But that's only half the story. The true value of Kiaka lies in what it represents, a new kind of mining project in a new kind of political environment. Unlike many legacy operations built in an era of weak oversight and foreign dominance, Kiaka is being developed in the middle of Burkina Faso's mining renaissance. Its timeline coincides almost perfectly with the country's national reforms, which means Kiaka is among the first major mines subject to the full force of the country's updated regulatory framework. It's not grandfathered into old contracts or protected by dated terms. It's a fresh project, born in a new era, and that makes it a critical test case for what future mining in Burkina Faso will look like. WAF, for its part, leaned into this pressure. The company promised transparency, local engagement, and compliance with new national rules. And perhaps more importantly, it delivered results. Construction of the mine was completed in the second quarter of 2025, staying remarkably true to the project's original schedule. That kind of punctuality is rare in mining, especially in countries dealing with internal security threats and global commodity fluctuations. Why does that matter? Because Kiaka's success validates Burkina Faso's new mining climate. It shows that foreign companies can still operate profitably while respecting the country's new rules. In other words, Kiaka disproves the old myth that investor-friendly must mean government-weak. Here, the investor got the gold, and the government kept its terms. Kiaka is also significant because of its infrastructure footprint. The site has been developed with modern processing plants, on-site smelters, and improved transport routes connecting it to key logistics corridors. That's not just good for WAF, it's a potential catalyst for regional development. Towns surrounding the site are already seeing an uptick in employment, with more local contracts being issued for auxiliary services such as catering, transport, maintenance, and logistics. There's also a symbolic weight to Kiaka's success. For many Burkinabe, gold has long been a resource they see but don't touch, dug from their soil but enriching others. With Kiaka producing within national oversight and contributing directly to state equity and development funds, that psychological distance is shrinking. Kiaka isn't just a mine that works, it's a blueprint for how the country can leverage its natural resources without losing control. It shows that Burkina Faso can host world-class mining operations without compromising sovereignty, speed, or standards. But for all its promise, Kiaka is just one piece of a broader transformation. Because now that the gold is pouring, the real question isn't how much Burkina Faso can extract, it's how much of it the country can keep. And that takes us straight into the next layer of this revolution: ownership, power, and the state's rising stake in its wealth. Burkina Faso isn't just producing gold, it's reclaiming it. The success of the Kiaka mine has made one thing painfully clear. Gold alone doesn't make a nation rich. Control over it does. And for the first time in its modern mining history, Burkina Faso is shifting from being a source of extraction to a center of power. This shift didn't happen by accident. It was engineered through one of the boldest legal overhauls in African mining law. Until recently, Burkina Faso's mining sector operated under a typical post-colonial model. Open the doors to foreign investors, offer favorable terms to attract capital, and hope that trickle-down benefits reach the population. But instead of empowerment, this model delivered outflows of wealth, limited tax revenues, and weak national leverage. All of that changed in July 2024, when the government, under President Ibrahim Traoré, enacted a dramatic revision of the mining code. The state didn't just tweak the rules, it rewrote them entirely. By the way, we have launched a merch that honors the African leaders who are taking a stand for Africa. Check them out, to show you also stand with loyal sons of Africa, no matter where you are. First and foremost, the state's free equity stake in new mining projects was raised from 10% to 15%, with an optional right to acquire an additional 15% at market rates. This means the government can now legally hold up to 30% ownership in any new mine, effectively becoming a co-owner rather than just a regulator or tax collector. For multinational companies, this changes the entire incentive structure. Instead of seeing the Burkina state as a passive player issuing permits, firms now face a government that's legally entitled to sit at the shareholder table, scrutinize books, and claim direct profit share. It's no longer enough to just export and pay taxes. Now the gold itself must work for the country. But it doesn't stop there. The new code also mandates greater Burkina participation across the value chain. Mining firms are now required to employ local staff, use domestic contractors, and report on community development contributions. The law even forces companies to contribute to a national mining development fund, a pool designed to reinvest mining revenues into infrastructure, healthcare, and education across mining regions. This isn't just a strategy, it's a statement. Burkina Faso refuses to be mined like a colony ever again. Even more disruptive is how the country is tackling the timing and duration of mining permits. Previously, foreign companies could secure long-term exploration and production licenses, often locking in outdated deals for decades. Under the new regime, permit durations have been shortened, and contract renewals are subject to strict performance reviews and renegotiations. That's code for, if you under-deliver, you're out. To enforce all of this, the government has ramped up the power and capacity of its mining oversight bodies, ensuring compliance doesn't just exist on paper. But even that wasn't enough, so the state created something bigger. Enter SOPAMIB, the newly formed state-owned mining company. Unlike traditional ministries that regulate from afar, SOPAMIB is built to own and operate. It can partner with foreign firms, take over failing projects, or run mines directly. It's the government's muscle on the ground, a visible force that turns policy into production. Several dormant or mismanaged sites have already been handed to SOPAMIB, a move that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. This legal and institutional restructuring represents a profound break from the past. Burkina Faso isn't just asking for a larger piece of the pie, it's demanding the recipe, the oven, and the power to decide who gets a seat at the table. Kiaka, for all its promise, is now operating under this very system. And though foreign firms like WAF may hold majority stakes, they do so within a framework where the state is no longer a silent partner. It's an active architect of the gold economy. But claiming ownership on paper is one thing. Retaining value in practice is another. The next stage of Burkina Faso's gold revolution is even more ambitious, refining gold inside its borders, cutting out foreign processors, and erasing the loopholes that once drained its wealth. Rewriting ownership laws may shift power on paper, but Burkina Faso's government knows that true economic liberation only begins when control reaches the final stage of the value chain, refining. If you can't process what you produce, you're still dependent. You're still exporting your wealth, even if it technically belongs to you. That's why the country's next move is more than symbolic, it's revolutionary. In 2025, Burkina Faso is constructing its first national gold refinery, located in Ouagadougou, designed to end the era of extract and escape. For decades, multinational firms pulled gold from Burkina soil only to ship it abroad, usually unrefined to destinations like Dubai, Switzerland, and South Africa. There, the raw gold was purified, priced, sold, and often rebranded without any trace of origin. Burkina Faso, meanwhile, was left with holes in the ground and crumbs from international markets. That cycle is about to be broken. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The refinery project, partially state-funded, with backing from Asian and African industrial partners, will be capable of processing hundreds of kilograms of gold per day, enough to handle both state-controlled output and portions of private sector production. But more than capacity, the refinery brings sovereignty. It ensures that Burkina Faso knows exactly how much gold is being produced, where it's going, and how it's priced. That eliminates one of the mining sector's most dangerous blind spots: invisible losses through underreporting and off-the-books exports. However, the refinery is only one part of a broader institutional infrastructure. To manage its new role as both owner and processor, the state created SOPAMEB, the Société pour le Patrimoine Minier du Burkina Faso, or the National Mining Heritage Company. This is not a passive government agency. SOPAMEB functions like a hybrid entity, part mining operator, part watchdog, and part strategic investor. Its mandate is clear: reclaim control over critical mining assets, either through equity stakes or direct operation. In recent months, SOPAMEB has begun asserting itself. The state-run company has already taken over several underperforming or legally contentious mining sites, absorbing operations that once quietly drained resources under old licensing models. With backing from Burkina Faso's military-led administration, SOPAMEB is streamlining oversight, renegotiating partnerships, and in some cases, auditing companies suspected of profit shifting and export fraud. Critics may call this aggressive, but for many inside the country, it's long overdue. The idea that Burkina Faso could be rich in gold and poor in return is no longer politically acceptable. SOPAMEB's growing portfolio is a tool to reverse that contradiction. By coupling ownership with refining capacity, the government is building a closed-loop mining economy, from extraction to processing to sale, without relying on foreign intermediaries. To further support this shift, Burkina Faso has temporarily suspended small-scale gold export permits, especially those linked to informal or artisanal mining. The government cited concerns about rampant smuggling, tax evasion, and links to black market networks. For decades, small-scale miners, many operating without formal registration, sold gold through middlemen who often funneled it out of the country illegally, depriving the state of vital revenue. By halting these permits, the government has effectively shut the back door. Once the refinery is operational, all legally extracted gold will need to pass through state-approved channels, creating a single entry point for gold to enter the global market. This doesn't just boost transparency, it increases bargaining power. A country that processes its gold, sets its prices, and controls its reputation. And there's one more angle that makes this shift historic: monetary independence. With refined gold in hand, Burkina Faso could move toward backing its currency with real reserves, as regional conversations intensify about creating a West African gold-backed currency outside the CFA franc system. That possibility, still distant, would have been unthinkable a decade ago. SOPAMEB and the refinery are not just tools, they're symbols. They mark the final rupture with a system where Africa produced and the world profited. But controlling gold alone doesn't build a nation. What matters now is how it's used, and whether the gold revolution fuels real development or becomes just another elite project. The final question remains: can this new model transform the economy and empower the people, or will it stop at symbolism? Gold has always been central to Burkina Faso's economy, but also its vulnerability. For years, it accounted for over 80% of export earnings and nearly 14% of GDP, yet rarely translated into broad-based development. Roads crumbled while gold was flown out. Schools lacked books while mining companies posted record profits. This wasn't just an economic problem, it was a national wound. Now the country is trying to turn that wound into a weapon. With new laws in place, a state refinery under construction, and SOPAMEB overseeing key assets, the Burkina Faso government is setting the stage not only to retain more wealth, but to redirect it with intention. But for this model to work, the question isn't just who owns the gold, it's where the gold goes once it's earned. The next step in this transformation will hinge on revenue deployment. The government has promised that profits from nationalized stakes and processing fees will flow into critical infrastructure, education, rural electrification, and agro-industrial development. These are the very sectors that decades of extractive mining failed to touch. What makes this moment different is not just that the government is making the right noises, it's that it finally has the means and mechanisms to do so. The National Mining Development Fund, fed by mandatory company contributions and SOPAMIB revenues, offers a new fiscal tool, a ring-fenced pool of gold-derived wealth meant explicitly for development projects. If implemented with transparency, this fund could become the single most powerful engine for national transformation in the country's post-independence history. But there's more at stake than economics. This gold revolution is reshaping Burkina Faso's geopolitical posture. As the country asserts control over its resources, it is also distancing itself from the Western development model, which emphasizes foreign direct investment, donor dependency, and regulatory leniency in exchange for security and cash injections. That model failed. Now, under President Ibrahim Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso is aligning more closely with resource-sovereign partners like Russia, China, and Turkey, countries willing to invest in infrastructure, defense, and processing in exchange for mutually beneficial trade rather than exploitative terms. In this emerging order, Burkina Faso isn't just a minefield, it's a strategic partner in the reconfiguration of African economic power. Some Western observers warn that this shift could alienate traditional donors or reduce investor confidence. But inside Burkina Faso, the sentiment is the opposite. For the first time, the country is acting on its terms, writing its own rules, and using its gold not as bait for foreign approval, but as a bargaining chip for self-determined growth. This rising economic independence could even fuel monetary innovation. There are growing calls within West Africa for a gold-backed regional currency that breaks from the French-controlled CFA franc. With refined gold in hand and revenue channels secured, Burkina Faso is better positioned than ever to support such a monetary shift, one that could insulate it from external shocks and assert fiscal sovereignty. Still, the real test lies ahead. Will the wealth from Kiaka and other mines fund rural clinics in Gawa? Will SOPAMIB's profits fix the potholes in Dori? Will the refinery's output finance industrial training in Koudougou? Gold alone doesn't build nations. What builds nations is what you do with them. If Burkina Faso can channel its gold wealth into people-centered development, schools, hospitals, food sovereignty, and industrial jobs, it will not only break the curse of resource extraction, but it will also become a blueprint for African nations still stuck in old contracts and foreign control. But if the money vanishes again, through mismanagement, corruption, or new elite capture, then the revolution will have been televised, smelted, and wasted. For now, the gold is flowing, the laws have changed, the refinery is rising. The question isn't whether Burkina Faso has power. The question is, how will it choose to use it? Do you think this will change Burkina Faso? What do you hope to see? Let us know in the comment section. Are you ready to see a change? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.